My name is Isabella Caldwell, and this is the story of how losing everything became the best thing that ever happened to me. The courthouse steps were cold beneath my feet that October morning. The kind of cold that seeps through your bones and settles in your soul, making everything feel hollow and empty. I stood there, watching my entire world crumble piece by piece. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened next. You see, when a marriage dies, people always ask about the house, the furniture, the bank accounts, the photographs that capture happier times when love felt eternal and promises meant something. But I did not care about any of that. All I wanted, all I had ever wanted, was my little silver car. That car was not just metal and glass and rubber tires. It was freedom. It was independence. It was every single dollar I had scraped together during those lean years before I met him, working double shifts at the diner just to make the monthly payments. That car was mine before Ethan Ward ever existed in my world. It was mine before he swept me off my feet with his charming smile and empty promises. Mine before the wedding that felt like a fairy tale. Mine before the slow, agonizing death of our marriage as his true colors began to show. And God help me, I thought it would still be mine when everything else fell apart. I was wrong. So devastatingly, heartbreakingly wrong. The divorce proceedings had been brutal. Months of legal battles, accusations flying back and forth like weapons designed to wound and destroy. Ethan had fought me on everything, every asset, every possession, every memory we had ever shared. But when it came to that car, I was certain the law would be on my side. The paperwork was clear. The title had my name on it. I had bought it with my own money, my own credit, my own dreams of having something that belonged to me and me alone. How could anyone take that away? I should have known better. I should have seen the predatory gleam in Ethan's eyes during those final court sessions. The way he whispered with his lawyer, the smug satisfaction that radiated from him whenever the car came up in discussion. But I was naive, broken, still clinging to the belief that justice existed in this world. The moment arrived like a lightning strike. Judge Harrison sat behind his imposing wooden desk, glasses perched on the end of his nose as he reviewed the final documents. The courtroom was eerily quiet, filled only with the sound of shuffling papers and my own thundering heartbeat. Regarding the 2018 Honda Civic, the judge began, and my entire body tensed with anticipation. This was it. This was the moment I would get my car back. My symbol of independence. My proof that I could survive anything life threw at me. Ethan leaned back in his chair with that infuriating smirk I had grown to despise. The same smirk that had once charmed me, that had convinced me he was the man of my dreams instead of the nightmare he would become. "She can take whatever she wants," he said, his voice dripping with false generosity. My heart soared for exactly 3 seconds. "Except the car. That one is mine now." The words hit me like a physical blow. The courtroom spun around me, everything becoming a blur of faces and voices and crushing, overwhelming disbelief. "Your Honor," my lawyer started to protest, but Judge Harrison raised his hand for silence. "The vehicle in question was purchased during the marriage using joint funds," he declared with the cold efficiency of someone who had no idea what those words meant to me. "Despite the title bearing Mrs. Caldwell's name, the court recognizes Mr. Ward's claim to the asset." Joint funds. Joint funds. The phrase echoed in my mind like a death sentence. Because yes, technically, some of our joint account money had gone toward paying off the loan. But that car had been my dream long before Ethan Ward existed in my world. I had picked out the color. I had chosen the interior. I had spent hours at the dealership, examining every detail, imagining all the places I would drive, all the adventures that awaited me. And now it was his. "No," I whispered, the word barely audible even to my own ears. "No, you cannot, this is not right." But the gavel was already falling. The decision was made. My fate was sealed. Ethan turned to look at me, that victorious smirk spreading across his face like poison. "Thanks for the car, Isabella. I will take good care of it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to launch myself across that courtroom and claw the satisfaction right off his face. I wanted to demand that someone, anyone, recognize the injustice of what had just happened. Instead, I sat there in stunned silence as my entire world collapsed. The rest of the proceedings passed in a haze. Property division, alimony discussions, custody arrangements for the dog we had adopted together. None of it mattered anymore. Nothing mattered anymore. Because he had taken the one thing that represented who I was before him. The one thing that proved I could stand on my own 2 feet. And he had done it with a smile. As we filed out of the courtroom, I watched Ethan swagger toward the parking garage. I knew exactly where he was going. I knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to get in my car. My beautiful, silver car with the lavender air freshener I had hung from the rearview mirror. And drive away like some conquering hero. I followed at a distance, my legs moving automatically while my mind reeled from shock and grief and rage. There it was. Sitting in its familiar parking spot, gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. My car. The car I had washed every Sunday morning. The car I had sung along to the radio in during countless commutes. The car that had been my sanctuary during the worst days of our marriage. Ethan pulled the keys from his pocket. Keys that should have been mine, and unlocked the door with theatrical flair. He looked up and saw me watching. And that smirk, that horrible, cruel smirk, grew even wider. "Do not worry, Isabella," he called out across the parking garage. "I will think of you every time I drive it." Then he got in, started the engine, and drove away. I stood there in that parking garage for what felt like hours, watching the empty space where my car had been, where my dreams had been, where my sense of self had been. When I finally moved, it was to walk to the bus stop. I had no car, no home, no marriage, no identity beyond the wreckage of everything I had once believed in. All I had was a bus ticket and a burning, consuming fire in my chest that threatened to either destroy me completely or forge me into something unbreakable. The bus ride home was a journey through hell. Every red light, every stop, every stranger who climbed aboard was a reminder of what I had lost, of how far I had fallen. My tiny apartment felt like a prison cell. Bare walls, second-hand furniture, the lingering scent of disappointment and broken dreams. I collapsed onto my couch and cried until there were no tears left. Cried for the car. Cried for the marriage. Cried for the naive woman who had believed that love could conquer all, that justice existed, that good things happen to good people. But anger is a strange thing. It can consume you, yes. It can eat you alive from the inside out if you let it. Or it can become fuel. It took me 3 days to stop wallowing. 3 days of self-pity and ice cream and staring at the ceiling while replaying every moment of that courthouse humiliation. On the 4th day, I got up. I showered. I put on my best interview outfit. And I went looking for work. If Ethan Ward thought taking my car would break me, he was about to learn just how wrong he could be. The first job I found was driving for a rideshare company. Not exactly glamorous, but it put me behind the wheel of a car again. Even if it was not mine. Even if it was just a beat-up sedan with torn seats and a mysterious stain on the dashboard. It was movement. It was progress. It was the first step toward something bigger. Every night, as I drove strangers across the city, I made myself a promise. The same promise, over and over again, until it became a mantra burned into my soul. If he can take one car, I will build something so big he will never be able to touch it. The work was hard. The hours were long. The passengers were sometimes drunk, sometimes rude, sometimes worse. But I did not care. Every dollar I earned was a dollar closer to my revenge. Every mile I drove was practice for the empire I was going to build. I started studying during my breaks. Fleet management, business models, electric vehicle technology, sustainable transportation solutions. I devoured every article, every case study, every success story I could find. Most people looked at the rideshare industry and saw an oversaturated market with razor-thin profit margins. I looked at it and saw opportunity. The city was changing. People cared about the environment now. They wanted clean transportation options, ethical business practices, companies they could feel good about supporting. And the existing services, they were impersonal, corporate, cold. What if someone built something different? Something that felt more like community than commerce? Something that proved business could be both profitable and principled? The idea started as a whisper in the back of my mind. A what if that grew stronger with every shift, Every conversation with passengers who complained about surge pricing and dirty cars and drivers who did not care about customer service. Within 6 months, I had a business plan. Within a year, I had investors willing to take a chance on my vision. I called it Caldwell Rides. My name, my company, my shot at proving that losing everything could be the beginning of winning it all. The first car was a used Toyota Prius I bought at auction with every penny I had saved. It was not much to look at. Faded blue paint, interior that had seen better days, an odometer that had rolled over twice. But it was mine. I spent an entire weekend detailing that car until it gleamed. New seat covers, air fresheners, a tablet mounted on the dashboard for passenger entertainment. I even installed a small cooler stocked with complimentary water bottles and mints. Then came the most important part. The lettering. Bold, professional vinyl letters spelling out Caldwell Rides across both doors. My name, my brand, my declaration that Isabella Caldwell was not going to be defeated by one man's cruelty. The first day I drove that car, I felt more pride than I had ever experienced in my entire life. This was not just transportation. This was transformation. This was proof that I could build something beautiful from the ashes of my broken dreams. Word spread quickly. Passengers loved the personal touch, the environmental focus, the sense that they were supporting something meaningful rather than just another faceless corporation. Within 6 months, I had 3 cars. Within a year, I had 10. Within 2 years, I had enough drivers to cover the entire metropolitan area. But I was not satisfied. I was not even close to satisfied. Caldwell Rides was growing, yes, but I wanted more. I wanted to expand beyond ride-sharing into delivery services, corporate transportation, airport shuttles. I wanted my name on every street, in every neighborhood, impossible to ignore or forget. I wanted Ethan Ward to see it everywhere he looked. The expansion was brutal. 18-hour workdays, constant stress, financial pressures that kept me awake at night staring at spreadsheets and profit projections. There were moments when I wondered if I was insane to think I could compete with companies that had billion-dollar budgets and armies of executives. But every time I wavered, I remembered that smirk. That moment in the courthouse when Ethan had taken my car like it was his right, his victory, his proof that I was nothing without him. And I kept building. Year 3 brought the first major breakthrough. A city contract for eco-friendly municipal transportation. Suddenly, Caldwell Rides was not just a scrappy startup anymore. We were a legitimate business with government backing and a commitment to environmental sustainability. Year 4 brought national attention. Magazine articles about women entrepreneurs. Speaking engagements at business conferences. Investment offers that made my head spin with their astronomical numbers. Year 5 brought vindication. By then, Caldwell Rides had hundreds of vehicles operating in 12 major cities. Electric cars, hybrid sedans, even a small fleet of luxury vehicles for high-end clientele. Every single one bore the same proud lettering. Caldwell Rides in bold, unmistakable letters. My name was everywhere. On cars, on billboards, on the sides of buses. The company I had built from nothing was worth more money than I had ever dreamed possible. But the sweetest moment, the absolute sweetest moment, came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reviewing new driver applications in my corner office on the 20th floor of the building that now housed our headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of the city where my dreams had once died and been reborn stronger than ever. The applications were routine. Background checks, driving records, references. I had a team that handled most of the screening, but I still liked to review the final candidates personally. It kept me connected to the ground level of the business, reminded me where I had started. And then I saw it. A name that made my blood freeze and my heart race simultaneously. Ethan Ward. My ex-husband. The man who had stolen my car and my dignity, was applying to drive for the company I had built from the ashes of his cruelty. I stared at that application for a full 10 minutes, reading and rereading every detail. His job history showed a steady decline over the past 5 years. Companies closing, positions eliminated, opportunities drying up. His references were weak. His financial situation was clearly desperate. The man who had once gloated about taking my car now needed to drive someone else's to survive. And those cars would all bear my name. The irony was so perfect, so absolutely poetic, that I almost could not believe it was real. I could have rejected his application immediately, could have blacklisted him from ever working in the transportation industry again, could have used my success to destroy him the way he had tried to destroy me. But that would have been too easy, too quick, too merciful. Instead, I crafted the perfect response. One line, carefully chosen to communicate everything I needed him to know. Application under review. But remember, Ethan, these cars are not yours. They never were. I hit send and leaned back in my leather executive chair, a smile spreading across my face that felt like sunshine after years of storm clouds. The reply came within minutes. A desperate, rambling email about how sorry he was, how he had made mistakes, how he needed this job to support himself. The arrogance was gone. The smirk was nowhere to be found. In its place was raw, undisguised panic. It was beautiful. I kept him waiting for 2 weeks. 2 weeks of uncertainty, of checking his email obsessively, of wondering if the woman he had wronged would show mercy. Finally, I approved his application. Not out of forgiveness, not out of kindness, but because I wanted him to drive my cars. I wanted him to wear my company's uniform. I wanted him to spend 8 hours a day surrounded by my success, my name, my proof that he had not broken me. I wanted him to remember every single day that he had taken one car, and I had turned it into an empire. The first time I saw him behind the wheel of a Caldwell Rides vehicle was a moment I will treasure for the rest of my life. He was parked outside a hotel downtown, waiting for a pickup, and I happened to be driving past on my way to a board meeting. There he was. Ethan Ward, the man who had once felt entitled to take my dreams, now wearing a Caldwell Rides polo shirt, and driving a car with my name emblazoned on the side. He looked older, tired, defeated. The cocky confidence that had once defined him was nowhere to be seen. I pulled up next to him at the red light and rolled down my window. "Nice car," I called out with a smile that could have powered the entire city grid. He looked over and the color drained from his face. For a moment, I thought he might actually pass out right there in the driver's seat. "Isabella, I did not know you would be." "What?" "That I would be driving around the city where my company operates? Where my name is on hundreds of cars just like the one you are sitting in right now." The light turned green, but traffic was not moving. We sat there in parallel, the past and the present colliding in the most satisfying way imaginable. "I want you to know," I continued, my voice calm and controlled, "that I see every car in my fleet as a victory. Every driver as proof that dreams cannot be stolen, only delayed. Every mile driven as evidence that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to stay down." He opened his mouth to respond, but I was not finished. "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for taking my car. Thank you for teaching me that I could not depend on anyone else to define my worth. Thank you for showing me that the only person I could truly count on was myself." Traffic started moving, and I prepared to drive away. But I had one more thing to say. "Enjoy driving my car. And remember, it will never, ever be yours." I drove away, leaving him sitting there, probably wondering how his moment of courthouse triumph had led to this complete reversal of fortune. That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse apartment, looking out over the city that had once seemed so hostile and unforgiving. Below me, I could see the occasional flash of Caldwell Rides vehicles moving through the streets like mobile monuments to my persistence. Somewhere out there, Ethan Ward was probably finishing his shift, returning my car to the company lot, taking off the uniform that bore my name. And tomorrow he would do it all again. The thought filled me with a satisfaction that was deeper and more complete than any victory I could have imagined. He had taken one car in the divorce, thinking it would be the final insult, the last word in our failed marriage. Instead, he had given me the motivation to build something extraordinary, something that would outlast both of us. Something that would employ hundreds of people. Something that would make transportation cleaner and more sustainable for generations to come. He had taken one car and handed me an empire. As I stood there in the cool evening air, watching my city pulse with life and possibility, I realized that revenge was not about destruction. It was not about tearing someone down or making them suffer. Real revenge was about transformation. about taking the pain someone caused you and alchemizing it into something beautiful and powerful and permanent. Real revenge was about becoming so successful, so undeniably triumphant, that the person who hurt you could not help but be reminded of their mistake every single day. Real revenge was building a fleet of cars with your name on the side, and then hiring your ex-husband to drive them. The business continued to grow. We expanded into electric vehicle manufacturing, opened training centers for sustainable transportation, partnered with cities across the country to reduce emissions and improve air quality. Every milestone felt like another mile in the victory lap I had been running since that day in the courthouse. But the best moments, the absolute best moments, were the random sightings of Ethan behind the wheel of one of my cars. I never sought them out, never went looking for him. But in a city where Caldwell rides had become as common as streetlights and coffee shops, our paths crossed regularly. Sometimes I would see him at gas stations, carefully checking the hybrid engine with the attention to detail that only desperation could inspire. Sometimes I would spot him in traffic, navigating the evening rush hour with the patience of someone who no longer had the luxury of entitlement. Sometimes I would catch a glimpse of him waiting outside restaurants or office buildings, playing the role of professional driver with the humility he had never possessed when we were married. And every single time, I felt that same surge of satisfaction, that same sense of cosmic justice finally being served. He was not just driving my cars. He was living proof of my success. He was walking, breathing evidence that Isabella Caldwell had not only survived his cruelty, but had transformed it into something magnificent. The media began to take notice of our story. Not the whole story, of course. I never publicly discussed the divorce or the personal motivations behind my business success. But journalists loved the narrative of a woman building an empire from nothing. And Caldwell rides became a symbol of female entrepreneurship and environmental responsibility. I gave speeches at conferences, appeared on magazine covers, advised other startup founders on scaling sustainable businesses. Each opportunity was another chance to cement my name in the public consciousness, another layer of success that put more distance between who I had been and who I had become. But I never forgot where it all started. Never forgot that moment of devastating loss that had become the foundation of everything I built afterward. The car Ethan had taken from me was long gone, of course. He had probably sold it within a year, traded it for cash or a newer model, or whatever momentary satisfaction he thought he needed. But it lived on in every Caldwell rides vehicle, in every green business practice we implemented, in every driver we trained and employed, in every passenger who chose our service because they wanted to support something meaningful. That little silver Honda Civic had multiplied and evolved and spread across the entire country, carrying my name and my values to places I could never have imagined reaching. 5 years after the divorce, Caldwell Rides went public. The initial public offering was oversubscribed by 300%, making it one of the most successful transportation company launches in history. On the morning the stock began trading, I stood outside the New York Stock Exchange watching my company's symbol flash across the electronic ticker. CWL. Simple, clean, unmistakable. My phone buzzed with congratulations from investors, board members, employees, and friends. But the message that meant the most came from an unexpected source. My former lawyer saw the news about Caldwell Rides going public. I remember how devastated you were about losing that car in the divorce. I hope you know that you have built something incredible. Congratulations on your success. I smiled and typed back a simple response. Thank you. Losing that car was the best thing that ever happened to me. And it was true. Completely, absolutely true. Because sometimes the universe has to take away something small to make room for something enormous. Sometimes you have to lose what you think you cannot live without to discover what you are truly capable of achieving. Sometimes the person who tries to destroy you actually sets you free. That evening, after the celebration dinners and media interviews and champagne toasts, I drove home through the city I had conquered. Not in a chauffeur-driven car or a company vehicle, but in my personal car. A Tesla Model S with the license plate CWL1. My car. Bought with my money. Registered in my name. Parked in the garage of the penthouse I owned in the building where Caldwell Rides had its headquarters. As I sat at a red light, I watched one of my company cars pull up beside me. Through the window, I could see the driver checking his phone, probably looking at the next pickup request. It was not Ethan. I had not seen him in months, actually. Word around the company was that he had been struggling with the demands of the job, that his customer ratings were consistently below average, that he might not survive the next round of performance reviews. But it did not matter. One driver or another, my fleet would continue rolling. My name would continue spreading. My success would continue growing. The light turned green, and I accelerated toward home, toward the life I had built from the ashes of the worst day I could remember. Behind me, the Caldwell Rides car followed the same route for a few blocks before turning toward whatever passenger was waiting, carrying my name into the night like a beacon of possibility. In my rearview mirror, I could see the bold lettering on the car's door catching the streetlight, Caldwell Rides. And I smiled, because he took one car in the divorce, and I turned it into an empire. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories of triumph over adversity. Hit that notification bell to never miss an upload, and share this story with anyone who needs to remember that sometimes losing everything is just the beginning of winning it all. Your support means the world to us.